Welcome into another edition of New Track Record podcast from the WELT studios. Caleb Hatch, Justin Kinney with you. We have hybrid testing to discuss. We have silly season notes. We have promotion of IndyCar already in October.
Holy moly.
What is happening? We have all that to get to on today's episode as we record this on Thursday, October 17th, here Thursday morning for us in the U.S., And before we get started with everything, which is kind of a weird week, this is the first week for us. It's been a real lull. Like, we did have a slow week earlier in the off season, but we had our fantasy IndyCar Challenge winner on with us. But now it's kind of weird, right? We had testing, we had some stuff going on last week, busy last week, and now first week it surely feels like the off season.
Yeah, I mentioned it before we started. We started recording that it was like, man, this is the first time where we don't have a clear cut big story to talk about, and I imagine it's going to be the first of many as we slog our way through the off season. But we'll make it. We'll keep ourselves entertained, and more importantly, keep the listeners entertained with all things IndyCar.
Well, I mean, that second part's debatable.
Well, yeah, true. We will try our best. At least we will.
We are efforting to entertain you.
Yes,
here
we
on
will
New
do
Track
our
Record.
best. We will probably fail.
I didn't ask how you are. How are you?
We're doing well. We're doing well.
Yeah,
how about yourself?
It's fall, doing well. Obviously, I'm always tired, but getting through it.
Yeah.
And
is it your wife's favorite season, fall? Because it's my wife's favorite season, so I have to hear about fall all the time.
Not in the, and we actually talked about this the other day. Like, there's like the basic fall liker, right?
Right.
It's, boots and pumpkin patches and sweaters and pumpkin spice lattes and all that stuff. It's not really her. For her, it's literally fall is soup season.
Soup season? So she's a big
She likes making soup and having soup.
So that's her thing.
thing.
So not chili, not beef, not stew, it's soup.
Yeah, we'll make chili, but soup. She likes making soup.
Soup is her jam.
Mm-hmm.
Now how many, what's your favorite soup she makes?
Ooh. Here's the thing. She never makes the same thing twice.
Really?
She doesn't follow recipes.
They're just, she just throws stuff in.
She will see a recipe and just kind of change it around. We've had this tortellini sausage soup.
Ooh.
With spinach and carrots a couple times recently that I really like. It uses a lot of heavy cream, so that's always good.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes we make chili. That's good. I don't know. That's probably just the most recent thing.
Yeah, but
we've had some chicken and rice soups.
It sounds like just it's unpredictable. You never know what she's going to come up with next. Maybe similar to IndyCar silly season. You never know what's going to happen next.
That's true. So soup and sweaters. Those are her things.
Soup and sweaters. As my wife, she always talks about, sweater weather and everything. She likes the crisp weather and, the leaves changing, all that crap. And Halloween's her favorite holiday. So, we're in the midst of it right now here in mid-October.
Do you have your Halloween inflatables in front of your house?
Yeah, all 11 of them. No, we used to put lights up. We don't do anything really inside. My wife has a little people do the Christmas village. She has a Halloween village.
Okay.
That she puts up and has lights and all that stuff. So that's pretty much the extent of it. But and we're at an interesting point right now because our oldest son is 14, so he's kind of out of trick-or-treat range, and the other one's 2, so he's obviously not in trick-or-treat range, so we really don't have to really worry about that this year either.
He's not in trick-or-treat range? You don't take him around?
I mean, 2, he doesn't know what's going on. I mean, we just end up eating all the candy, and Lord knows we don't need any more of that. So, no, next year we'll take him out. Noah will probably go to a party of some sort. He's dressing up as Billy Joe Armstrong. You know who Billy Joe Armstrong is? Green Day frontman.
Oh, okay.
Because he's huge into Green Day. So yesterday they had to go. My wife and Noah had to go to Goodwill to get some tight black pants. Apparently that's what he wears, and a dark shirt and red tie.
Oh, yes. I can picture the look.
Yeah, so that's what he's going with.
Is he going to dye his hair black?
I don't think so. I don't think he's going to go that far. Last year he was Ozzy, and he really pulled it off.
Yes, he did. I remember that.
A lot like Ozzy. So. But I mean, Green Day is what I grew up with, so it's funny because my son's now into it now. But but then November 1st is it's in Christmas mode,
yeah.
And I'll fight that battle on holding off as long as possible. Put the tree up, but
we buy a live tree.
Okay, so you can't get it so early.
You can't get it that early. You got to wait till Thanksgiving weekend. Basically,
it's a great excuse not to have to put it up early.
So, and we like the live tree.
But yeah, we'll get through October and get into Christmas, and then once we get past the holiday season, well, we only have a couple months until the start of the 2025 IndyCar season, of which more of that lineup is coming into focus.
Yes. So let's start with hybrid testing at IMS last week. So the first day, just a handful of drivers. The second day, one driver from each team, including Ryan Hunter-Reay from Dreyer Reinbold. Rinus VeeKay actually stepped in. So it was originally supposed to be Stingray Robb, right?
Correct.
With Dale Coyne Racing. And then Rinus VeeKay was there. He stepped in last second.
So do we know why Stingray Robb wasn't in the seat?
Basically, my understanding was VeeKay was there, and they asked him to do it.
All right.
So, but more on that when we get to silly season stuff. Then... so Hunter-Reay there with Ryan Reinbold, VeeKay with Coyne, no Prima because it's based on 2024, so not for 2025. But all in all, I mean, it was clean, not a ton of massive takeaways, but I think Alex Palou had some interesting things to say regarding testing. He said, qualifying, it's going to be interesting with the hybrid unit, and as far as following cars, a little bit tougher with the hybrid.
Not ideal, but I mean,
it's not great.
It's a test in October, so let's not panic.
He said you can overtake, but you can feel that the car's a little bit heavier with that. He told Racer.com. So that's something to keep in mind. And also, as far as like feeling the recharge, he said, it's not noticeable in terms of you're not really noticing everything that's happening in real time. It's not dangerous, he said. You can recharge, then you can feel it, but it's not crazy. So it's not like a dramatic thing. You're not lifting going into turns kind of thing. But be curious what it does for speeds. Be curious how people use it in qualifying. That will be fascinating. But all in all, seems like a clean test. Really, the takeaways are more on the drivers that participated and with different teams. Connor Daly with Juncos because Grosjean had Petit Le Mans last weekend as well. So another thing to keep in mind.
One thing that kind of stands out to me in terms of what this potentially could mean is the teasing of the pseudo push to pass and what that could possibly mean going forward in the Indianapolis 500.
You mean like harvesting the energy and when to deploy, when not to,
correct,
that kind of thing?
Since we don't have push to pass on ovals, could this be a pseudo push to pass, which we've always kind of talked about with the hybrid system as being that extra kind of oomph, and particularly because we expect the horsepower to be upped from 60 to maybe 100 horsepower when you do deploy the hybrid. So could this, and Palou mentioned it may be a little bit more difficult to get behind and pass, could that then see a strategy of when you deploy to get an extra 100 horsepower to enable you to pass? Could we see a more strategic approach to the Indianapolis 500 next year in terms of when you harvest, when you deploy, and maybe add another element there? So again, it's an October test. May is going to be completely different. We don't know what other components could be added or subtracted from the car. Everybody has the new lightweight aero screen, right? Do we know?
Yes.
So that's the same. In terms of aero, all that stuff, we don't really know. So no need to panic yet in terms of how this is going to impact the racing in terms of the extra 100 pounds. But at least it went around with no incident at the 500 or the Speedway as far as we know. So good test, but I think there could be an added dimension, an added element of the 500, particularly in qualifying too, as you mentioned, deploying that power and seeing how it impacts qualifying and the race.
And whoever figures it out, I mean, they'll have an advantage. And I think that's going to be something that's going to be new for all of next season, is just utilizing the hybrid and qualifying at any circuit is going to be kind of a newer thing. I get that we had half a season, but it will be newer, especially the first half of the year.
Right.
And then we also had testing at Iowa. Pato Award, Colton Herta, Louis Foster took place in a Firestone tire test as well to obviously try to help improve the on-track product there. So a lot of testing underway. Let's get into the silly season element. I think this is kind of the most interesting part. So we mentioned Connor Daly there with Juncos. Hunter Ray there with Ryan Reinbold. Look, all things seem to be that Connor Daly could return to Juncos. They're trying to bring him back. And then some interesting notes from trackside of this week. Devlin DeFrancesco, apparently his father, who runs a lot of companies, has
a lot of money.
Has funding. They've had conversations with 3 teams, 2 very serious. He'll be full-time next year. Obviously, Ray Hall, Coyne, Juncos have seats available. Also, Dale Coyne Racing will be Stingray Robb, and he has enough budget for him to drive, and also Rinus VeeKay to come in. Roman Grosjean, a possibility at Coyne as well. Hy-Vee not on any race car, which we learned Hy-Vee out at Ray Hall after 5 seasons. Yeah, they will just be at Iowa Speedway. They're not sponsoring the Milwaukee race either.
Yeah, and I think that's a big story that you want to tackle that now, is the fact that not only did they leave Ray Hall, they're leaving the promotions of Milwaukee, and basically it comes down to that classic story of new CEO with Hy-Vee.
Yes.
Former CEO was all in on auto racing and sponsoring this, that, and the other, particularly in IndyCar. New CEO, not as gung-ho about it. So is this the initial step towards eventually Hy-Vee getting completely out of IndyCar, which would devastate the Iowa event? Or is it, hey, we're consolidating everything. Iowa's going to be our primary priority, and everything else is going away. I think there was discussion too about maybe Hy-Vee jumping to Penske, which was teased as maybe a big deal if it happened. But to me, it's as simple as Hy-Vee wanting to be with a winning team as opposed to flipping to a team whose owner also owns the series. My thing with Hy-Vee is we're investing a hell of a lot of money in IndyCar. They don't want to be affiliated or partnered with a team that's not winning. And, ROL doesn't win and Penske wins. That would be as simple as that. But fact of the matter is, Hy-Vee steps out. Hopefully, the Iowa support is here to stay, at least for the near future. But they have considerably cut back with RLL, which I think is a big loss for them. And then, of course, Milwaukee is a big hit to that event as well.
Aren't they sponsoring the NASCAR race at Iowa Speedway?
They are. So maybe, because Hy-Vee HQ is in Iowa, right?
Yes.
I mean, maybe that's their approach going forward. We're going to own the 2 races at Iowa Speedway, or the 2 events in Iowa Speedway each year, 1 IndyCar, 1 NASCAR, and that's going to be their priority. I think if that's the relationship going forward between Hy-Vee and IndyCar, I think that's fair.
To me, I think it makes sense if they just stick with the Iowa Speedway, IndyCar and NASCAR, or sadly, they pick NASCAR. I mean, who knows?
We've seen this before, right?
My thing is, I feel like Hy-Vee's locked in for next year. Anything beyond that for IndyCar is up in the air. I think that's the reality of how this goes.
And that's kind of the problem with some of these companies that jump into the deep end with IndyCar or any series, but particularly IndyCar, because that's what we expect then going forward, right? Hy-Vee jumps in. Okay, they're all over the Iowa thing. They're all over cars for RLL. Now they jumped into Milwaukee, and then that's kind of just what we expect. But it's not sustainable because the return on investment is not what you would expect with a team that's not winning races, other than Lundgaard, 2023, and a new CEO that has to reprioritize everything. So they jumped in really into the deep end, and now they're coming back into the shallow end. People are like, oh my gosh, but they took on so much so quickly that you felt like inevitably they were going to cut back. So hopefully their support of the Iowa event stays, but it kind of wouldn't surprise me. We've seen this before from tracks in particular. Gateway, how much did they put into the IndyCar race? And now that they have NASCAR, it's become secondary, and for good reason, because they make tens of millions of dollars off NASCAR.
Just with the TV deal.
The TV deal, right?
Not including tickets sold.
So you can't blame entities for doing that. And if Hy-Vee said, hey, we're making X ROI on our investments in the NASCAR event and we're not getting that return in the IndyCar event at Iowa, then who's to say they wouldn't step aside? I think people have this warped, some people have this warped opinion of the companies and sponsorships and tracks owe it to IndyCar to do this, that, and the other. They don't owe them anything. Their responsibility is to make money. And if Hy-Vee is making money or getting their getting what they want in terms of being in the spotlight, in terms of promotions, purely from NASCAR, it doesn't make sense to do the IndyCar bet. But for now, they're locked in for 2025, hopefully for beyond. But this is a story to watch as they've pulled back significantly from what they're doing in 2025. We'll see if that impacts 2026 and beyond.
And look, for Rahal, it started in 2020. And it wasn't, a full season deal. It was like on the Aero screen or something.
Yeah. Gosh, it's been 4 years.
And a third place finish at Iowa for Graham Rahal in one of the races there in the doubleheader.
Right.
And then obviously blossomed into a lot more than that. And it was a good relationship. Look, sponsors come and go in motorsports. I think they were all in when they were here, and that's all you can ask for sponsors. And I think they succeeded in marketing Hy-Vee to a lot of people in the Midwest who probably weren't aware of Hy-Vee. Hy-Vee very popular in Iowa and southern Minnesota. And yes, there are stores, I think, in Wisconsin, but I mean, they sponsored a race in Milwaukee. There's no Hy-Vee store in Milwaukee.
Correct.
Obviously,
definitely none in Indiana.
None in Indiana, but they're trying to expand to Indiana, which we've heard that for a couple of years now. I kind of wonder when's that actually going to happen, because they did buy, Strack Van Til, which is in northern Indiana, bought that chain up. And they're still awaiting, expansion for stores in Indiana. So, but either way, they were all in. It's unfortunate. This is part of the sport. And I do think it's interesting that they leave. And I get it. This is probably more due to Randy Eddiker, stepping aside. But they leave at a time when IndyCar is going to get so much more exposure because of the new TV deal.
Yeah.
Go figure.
It's true. But, change in leadership. We saw it with Target. Why did they step aside? Inevitably, there was a series of reasons, but change in CEO and reforming their marketing strategy. It happens. And it's just the latest case is Hy-Vee.
So back to silly season stuff, because that impacts Rahal, obviously that third seat. We mentioned Pietro Fittipaldi. Could Rinus VeeKay be at play? There are several other drivers with funding. Could they be at play? What happens with that third car? It sounds like Stingray Robb back to Coyne, Rinus VeeKay to Coyne. That would be a solid lineup for them to try to have some stability in 2025. And then Marshall Pruitt had this in the mailbag in terms of extra cars for the Indy 500. Someone asked, does Brian Reinbold still plan to enter 2? He says yes. And then basically he said running an extra car at the Speedway is a solid moneymaker. So 27 full-time cars. And then he said known or expected extras from Andretti with Marco Andretti, Aaron McLaren with Kyle Larson, Ed Carpenter with Ed Carpenter. We know those. Shank with Castroneves, you know that as well. Bill Abel plans to enter, which that will probably have to be a partnership with someone. Right,
which is kind of what he mentioned a week or so ago in that article.
And then he said I'd bet Ganassi will have an extra car. I think that's interesting. And likely Coyne and Rahal, maybe a Foyt and Juncos as well. So,
I mean, we mentioned MSR running Elio.
Yes.
Okay.
So, I mean, we're looking at perhaps capping out at that 36. I don't know how.
If everything falls into place.
Yeah, if everything falls into place. Now, do we go over 36? I don't think so.
Probably not. I think there's still a cap that Chevy and Honda are putting on it that we're not, supporting more than 18 per. But the target number always for me is at least 35. Give me at least 35, and that's fun. We've talked ad nauseum about 34 and just how weird it is, bumping one. But give us 35 or more, and we're content. Give us some actual drama for multiple teams on qualifying weekend.
So in terms of other silly season possibilities, I mean, it feels like a lot is kind of waiting on where Stingray Robb and Devlin DeFrancesco end up.
Right. And I was going to ask you, like, what's the catalyst here?
I feel like one of those two.
Yeah.
Or both.
That's really going to then lead to everything else falling into place.
I think so.
I think it's amazing, but it's follow the money, right? So Stingray Robb has support. Rinus VeeKay doesn't have much, but he is, in my opinion, in terms of the quote unquote hot free agents, he's the biggest one.
Yes.
Right now. So where does he land? And I think that maybe is the catalyst. To me, it's Rinus VeeKay. Wherever he goes, then you see the rest of the dominoes fall into place.
The other thing that's fascinating is there doesn't seem to be a lot of conversation around Logan Sargent, who has that test with Shank in November at Thermal, like, a week before Thanksgiving, roughly. Right. Is it wait and see how the test goes, and then maybe talk will pick up with him? Like, I don't think we're going to see all these seats filled before Thanksgiving. That simply does not happen. But I think there's a chance we could have all the seats filled before Christmas.
Yeah,
if Coyne is that serious about who their lineup's going to be, that's the one that's kind of.
That's where we were last year, right? We knew around
for
Christmas,
the most
before
part,
Christmas,
yes.
what the majority was going to be. Logan Sargent just seems like an outside shot, because I think Logan Sargent, people assume because he was in Formula One and has a bunch of backing, that he could just come in and pay $5 million. I just don't know if he wants to be that. I think we've read, correct me if I'm wrong, where he wants to be a paid driver. He doesn't want to be a paying driver. And I think maybe that's what's keeping him off the radar right now, is that he wants to be a guy that makes money in IndyCar. He doesn't need to make money necessarily right now, because he made plenty in Formula One. So maybe it's a wait and see for him, and see if any paid positions, maybe not even this offseason, but next offseason, come into play. Maybe he gets some spot starts next year for somebody, depending on circumstances. But he just seems to be a little bit off the radar in terms of a 2025 full-time seat.
Does that surprise you like it surprises me?
No, not really. I just never got the feeling that Logan Sargent was hell-bent on, as soon as I'm done in Formula One, I'm going to IndyCar. I think that was more fan-driven, maybe, that, it makes sense for Logan Sargent to do this because it didn't work out in Formula One. I just haven't got the feeling from Logan Sargent that this was a destination after his Formula One, an immediate destination after Formula One was over.
Kind of like what we thought with Nicholas Latifi, another former Williams driver a couple of years ago.
Right, another guy that everybody, as soon as he's done in Formula One, he's coming to IndyCar. That's not happened, and I think Logan Sargent eventually finds his way into IndyCar, maybe as soon as next year with some spot starts, but I just never got the feeling that and here's the thing too, is Logan Sargent, after you get that taste of Formula One, you want to hold on to it as long as possible. If there's any remote opportunity that even he could be a reserve driver for somebody and be around the Formula One paddock and something happens and he's right back in, I think he wants to really exhaust all options before he turns to IndyCar. So I think he's still very much focused on Formula One, as long shot as that is, even if it's as a reserve driver for somebody in the event that somebody gets canned or somebody gets injured or something like that.
And then there's Prima, who we've long expected Robert Schwartzman to be the second driver for that team. That's not been confirmed as of this time, but Marshall Pruitt had an interesting nugget in the Racer.com mailbag talking about Prima and getting charters. They offered to buy charters from Juncos, and the asking price, $40 million.
So $40 million for two, that's $20 million apiece. That's, if somebody's stupid enough to pay it, we'll take it. I don't think that IndyCar charters are worth $20 million. But Juncos was like, hey, if you want to pay us way over market price for these things, go ahead. And Prima was like, nah. I hope it works out for Prima, because it just seems like they're getting the short end of the stick everywhere around in terms of, and who knows, maybe Prima's not even ready to test, but they don't test at Indy for hybrids. They're obviously not on the charters. I hope Prima is welcomed a little bit more once we get into the 2025 season by the series. And I'm not talking about the teams. I'm talking about the series a little bit more than what they have so far.
I think to me, and the hybrid test was more that they weren't a 2024 season participant, but for them, it feels like the cards are stacked against them.
Yeah,
it does not feel like a fair chance.
Have you seen a single quote from any IndyCar official welcoming Prima to IndyCar?
I mean, when they announce, they welcome them, but beyond that, it doesn't feel like...
It just seems like, we're happy to have you. Can't wait for you to join the paddock, all this stuff. And I don't see it. It seems more to be a hindrance more than anything to the series. Oh, gosh, here we have another team that we have to try to accommodate at some of these tracks that we don't have enough pit spots for. And, oh, gosh, here's more that want to be part of the leaders' circle money and all that stuff. It just seems like IndyCar really isn't welcoming. I mean, compare it to when Carlin, for example, came over and just the red carpet that was given by the series to Carlin. And Prima is very much a Carlin in the sense that they're coming from Europe and are going to compete and all that stuff. And it just seems like they're not being as welcoming to this new team as they were with a Carlin.
Yeah, and different era, different ownership.
Right. But it's almost like, despite everything, Prima still wants to jump in, and that's a testament to them. And you want it to work. You just hope that some of the bumps along the way are smoothed out on IndyCar's side to be more accommodating for this team.
And then the other big story of the week, well, it was about a 45-second clip during the Dallas Cowboys Detroit Lions NFL game on Sunday.
The only highlight of that game, if you tuned in,
unless
you're a Lions fan.
Yeah, unless you're a Lions fan. But not only did they talk about the IndyCar and Indy 500 on Fox in 2025, they had a promo. They showed the track layout. They talked about IndyCar coming to Fox. They talked about the GP of Arlington. I saw that they had an IndyCar show car outside Cowboys Stadium.
Ooh, nice.
During the game. They also had the event logo on the big screen inside the stadium.
Nice.
So a really good promotion, and the game had more than 24 million viewers. So
that doesn't hurt.
This is a lot promotion for IndyCar that we're getting in mid-October that we would not have gotten otherwise.
Do you think it was purposefully done to not mention when the Grand Prix of Arlington is? Because it was not mentioned.
I did find that interesting.
Because I is the thinking, well, if we say it's March 2026, people are going to be like, well, whatever. Was it just a tease because they teased the Indianapolis 500, Fox, the home of IndyCar, and oh, by the way, Grand Prix of Arlington, which is not coming next year. So strategically, I think it was on purpose to not mention when that race is, because the way it was presented, you could easily connect it to say, oh, this race is coming in 2025, but it's not.
Yeah, I think they withheld that for good reason.
Yo, I agree.
Here's the thing. They're building buzz for that event, and we're a year and a half away.
Correct. No, I think it's good. I think it's very good. So it was great to see. Hopefully it continues. Hopefully it's not just a one-off, just because the Dallas game was the game of the week. I hope they continue to, at the very least, promote the Indianapolis 500.
Which I think we'll see that because Fox has the Super Bowl, right? So I'm sure they'll have an Indy 500 teaser during the Super Bowl, like saying coming this May, the Indy 500 on Fox for the first time, that sort of thing.
Kind of like what NBC did, there was the network of championships and they put up, the Super
championship
Bowl
season, and they had the Indy 500 up there.
Did they have the US Open or something?
French Open,
something like
US
that.
Open for golf, which I think they had.
Kentucky Derby, or
Derby,
Triple Crown, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if they'll do something similar to that for IndyCar, or at least the Indianapolis 500, but any promotion is good promotion. I think we'd gotten to a point where we knew NBC wasn't going to do that stuff. But to NBC's credit, when they first got the contract, they were aggressive. It just kind of died off. So Fox is doing something that IndyCar did, or that NBC did with IndyCar when they first got it. We'll see if it continues. And
then we also had this from Jenna Fryer, speaking of Fox and IndyCar. She had replied to a fan who said, "Who is calling the race?" Talking about the Indy 500, and she replied, this was to someone who on the Fox post about the Indy 500. So Fox had tweeted about it, and the fan said, "Who's calling the race?" And Jenna just responded, "Alan Bestwick, Townsend Bell, and James Hinchcliffe." However, Hinchcliffe has denied that he has anything signed for next year with Fox for IndyCar.
Well, signed and agreed upon are two different things. There was no context to what Jenna said.
No.
So
what was that, speculation? Was that
was her
this is who it's going to
prediction?
be?
Yeah.
Unclear.
So, yeah.
So that's the latest on that. But if that is the team, I think that's a very solid broadcast team.
Yes.
We'll wait and see who the pit reporters are. But as far as who's in the booth, I think that is pretty much ideal for IndyCar fans.
I would agree. I mean, Alan Bestwick did it in the latter years of ABC, right?
Yes. One of the highlights.
Yeah, and he does still. He's the PA guy at the Speedway. I don't know if it's all the time or just
he shares with Calabro, I think.
Okay.
For May. I don't know about for NASCAR.
Yeah, I don't know if he does IMSA and NASCAR stuff, but he does it for May and stuff like that. So I like Alan Bestwick, and obviously they know our feelings with Townsend Bell and James Hinchcliffe. I do think they're repetitive, Townsend Bell and James Hinchcliffe. I like the banter between them, but in terms of what they bring,
similar style,
similar knowledge. Okay, former driver. Would I love to have somebody that was more on the engineering side of things? I would love to have that, but I know people are asking too, like who the pit reporters be, but getting ahead of ourselves. We'll see who the broadcast crew is going to be. I'm sure they'll announce everything at due time, but was Jenna saying that based on knowledge of what that's going to be, or was that just purely her speculation prediction? We're not sure.
Yeah, unclear on that. If you agree, disagree, have opinions on our takes, we'd love to hear from you. You can always find us on the website, newtrackrecordpodcast.com. While you're there, sign up for the email list. It is free to subscribe. We'll send you emails for new episodes and special announcements as well. You can also check out the store. We have t-shirts and stickers available for you on the store, on the site as well. You can always email us if you have questions, comments, rants, concerns, newtrackrecordpodcast@gmail.com. You can reach us on social media, IndyCar Podcast on Twitter/X, also on Instagram, on Facebook. Just search for New Track Record. You can support us via Patreon, patreon.com/New Track Record. Thanks to Xavier and others for their support. And as always, download and listen in for free on your favorite podcasting platform, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, CastBox, Player FM, YouTube Music, wherever you find your podcasts, and download for free. Okay, mailbag time, Justin, and not a ton to get to this week, and that's not really surprising. It's been a relatively slow week.
Yep, slow to this week.
So we don't have a whole lot to dive into on the mailbag, but let's start out. And a couple from P56 Front. Love the thought of coming back to Canada with an extra race. Is talking about last week's discussion. I think Montreal would make sense. End of summer, Labor Day-ish. A lot of money has been invested at the circuit for F1. The promoter is Bell, technically our IndyCar TV partner in Canada through TSN, so good to know that. Also adds, I dump on Penske a lot, but Arlington is a major win. Glad Penske is not promoting because I think Rev will put in resources Penske would not. Love to see Mexico City go in February. If you move St. Pete out of March, you break their tourist attendance, and that could drop. Yeah, it's got to be in March. St. Pete has to be in March.
I read an article last night while laying in bed on The Athletic. Did you read the story about the 40th anniversary of the Dallas Grand Prix Formula One race?
No, I did not. Where it's so hot, like the pavement was melting.
The pavement was melting. Well, and they had actually laid the asphalt down merely weeks before, when it needs to be laid down months before, so allowed it to be cured and go through a weather cycle and all that stuff. So a combination of factors, but that just kind of reinforced the importance of when that Grand Prix of Arlington is, because they tried to run it in June, I think.
Oh.
And it was just, it was brutal. And it was one and done. It was actually a successful event in terms of fans and all that stuff. And it had a 3-year contract, but it did not work. There was even talk of a boycott of the event, which is funny because it was like mid-90s that that week or that they raced, but then now Formula One's racing in Dubai and all that stuff. I know it's at night, but it's a little bit different. But it was interesting. But it kind of proves the point that even 40 years later, the importance of making sure that date is in early spring.
Well, Fontana 2015 in June during the day.
Not ideal.
And that was that for that event.
Yeah, that was that.
That's the problem. Elsewhere on the mailbag, Lynn _IndyCar said when NBC got full contract prior to the 2019 season for IndyCar, they were promoting the Indy 500 on a pair of NFL playoff games, which NBC only has on Wild Card weekend, and some Sunday night football games too, which is way bigger promotion than during a loser Cowboy game. Well, yes, bigger promotion if you're talking Sunday night football and Wild Card games. Those usually get more viewers, but still. 24 million is 24 million.
24 million. Yeah.
And you not only got an Indy 500 mention, you got an IndyCar mention, and you got a teaser showing the track map and layout of the Grand Prix of Arlington. To me, it's a win-win-win. And
a picture of, Jerry Jones.
Jerry and Roger
Penske.
Yeah.
It was definitely the highlight of Jerry's week last week. That's for sure.
No doubt on that. Elsewhere on the mailbag, Lynn also had this. Comments on Adam Stern's posts are priceless from IndyCar fans. I feel some IndyCar fans need to take a business class to understand why a return to Michigan Speedway is probably not happening due to the business plan to create race and execution of the race. Mark Miles was correct, and this is talking about Mark Miles still enjoying his role. This from Adam Stern, Sports Business Journal. Plans to continue in it. Not planning to step down. Obviously,
sure. He's
a lot
not
of
planning on stepping down.
Yeah, a lot of noise right now with that.
Yeah, I don't know. But in terms of what Lynn was talking about with the comments on Adam Stern's article about or about the
more ovals crowd, I'm guessing.
Okay.
Which, yeah,
never ends. No, well, we need to reiterate too, because I think one tidbit in the mailbag from Marshall Pruitt this week was talking about Texas Motor Speedway. Oh, yeah, we need to promote a race at Texas Motor Speedway. Per Marshall Pruitt, IndyCar went to Texas Motor Speedway with a multitude of different ideas for the 2024 season to race at Texas Motor Speedway early in the season, late in the season, middle of the season at night, early in the season at night, late in the season at night. And TMS agreed to 0 of them. So for anyone saying, well, IndyCar's not trying to race at ovals, IndyCar tried every single possible scenario within its season parameters, March to September, to try to figure something out at Texas. And the Speedway said no to every single one of them. So just remember that when we're talking about, IndyCar's not pursuing ovals, why aren't they running at Texas? They tried at Texas, and Texas didn't want them. That tells you something about the state of IndyCar and Texas Motor Speedway.
And remember, TMS in their statement made it sound like they were the victims.
Right. Well, it's all about spin. This sounds like the spin. I mean, and I read a story too about, I think, the Fort Worth Telegram?
Star Telegram, yeah.
Did a story about Texas Motor Speedway trying to broaden its horizons about different events and all that stuff.
I saw that story. I didn't read it because I was like, this is PR fluff, right?
Which was absolutely PR fluff. Talked about the urban sprawl that's starting to take over around the track and how that real estate is becoming more and more valuable. I mean, do you feel by the end of the decade?
Yeah, no, I think I said this last week.
You did, yes.
Yeah, I think I could see a scenario where Texas Motor Speedway is closed and shut down and perhaps rubble by 2030. Like, I really could see that.
I think so, too. Now down to one in NASCAR event.
Yeah, and they keep messing with the track configuration and making it worse.
Which is that thing. That's a sign of desperation, trying to find something that works. And yeah, I think Texas Motor Speedway's days are numbered, to be honest.
I do as well. It won't shock me if they're off a cup schedule here in the next 2 to 3 years, and then that's that for the track. Now, do they end up being a Kentucky Speedway where they just sit there and car manufacturers park their extra unsold vehicles there? Or Chicagoland, does it end up like one of those?
No, because I think the land is so valuable. Kentucky's still in the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
Chicagoland's still in the middle of nowhere. But that real estate that used to be industrial is now turning into commercial residential, and it's very valuable.
One other note on the mailbag for this week, and just Lynn bragging, hey, Justin, Dixon doing Dixon things, unbelievable drive by the Iceman. Dixon and Ganassi won the 2024 Petite Le Mans. Also, shout out to Hunnell McElroy with a win in LMP2 in the number 11 as well. So did you catch any of...
I caught exactly 0.
I didn't either. It was... Saturday, late afternoon, overnight?
I don't know. It's football season.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I want to get into IMSA. I do.
I can't.
The cars look cool. Like the top class. They look really cool. And the hypercar at Le Mans, like, it's cool. And I'll watch Le Mans some, just have it on. Same with the Rolex 24. But I don't fully understand it. I understand multiple classes. I get that.
Right, but it takes a lot of brain power. If I turn on NASCAR, I can look at the leaderboard and know exactly what's going on. I can turn on Formula One. This time of year is what I'm talking about. If I can turn on Formula One and know exactly what's going on in terms of who's leading. I turn on an IMSA race, I don't know what's going on. There's different classes, okay? There's different leading. There's a pass on track, but it's not really for position because they're in different classes, right? I don't have A, the mental capacity, or B, the real interest to care. I don't care about IMSA racing. I don't. Am I jealous of IMSA racing in terms of the car manufacturers that are in it? Absolutely. But do I care about what's going on track in IMSA or sports car racing? I do not.
Record attendance at Road Atlanta. Look, IMSA's got something going. They've had it going for a couple years now that I wish IndyCar could have. Like you said, crowds, manufacturers. Yeah, their TV deal's not great, but it's not a TV-driven series.
Which is a
because
problem.
they have the support of NASCAR, because it's owned by NASCAR,
correct,
they're going to have that backbone to lean on.
True. I lied. I actually did watch a little bit of this, but it was the pre-race, and it was on. I was at Planet Fitness, and they showed a picture of Colton Herta, or a video of Colton Herta.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
What's this? It was on one of the multitude of TVs. And so I watched like 2 minutes that I actually paid attention to that TV and saw what was going on, but I didn't see actual racing.
That wraps up the mailbag. Get to news and notes, and we have a ton of silly season news for the series formerly known as Indy Lights. We start off with the headline, and that is Hailie Deegan coming over to IndyCar or to Indy Lights. She will be with HMD next season. Multi-year deal. I think that's the key thing. So she'll have some time to learn the tracks, a lot of testing. She's already done some testing. She'll take part in the Chris Griffiths Memorial Test, which is at IMS on the road course, coming up tomorrow, this weekend. So this is notable. She's a popular driver, had mixed success in trucks, tried to also do Xfinity, kind of stalled out, had success in ARCA, comes from a motorsports family. This is a really fascinating move, and we had seen her hanging around the paddock, at Iowa Speedway, I think, earlier this summer. So this will be really fascinating to see how she adapts, adjusts. It's going to take some time. I don't think anyone's expecting her to go out and compete for race wins, maybe on the ovals, certainly not on the road courses, but she's going to need a lot of testing.
Well, and what we don't know is, has she driven a car without power steering? Maybe she has. I don't know. That was the big adjustment for others.
Yes.
In the series, from Danica all the way up to, I'm blanking on her name.
Jamie Chadwick.
Jamie Chadwick, yeah. She needed that one season to really figure out how physically demanding the cars are. And in year 2, after training, she was able to get up there. So I think it's good. It's a multi-year deal for Hailie Deegan. You look at what she was able to accomplish or not accomplish basically her opportunities ran out on the other side of things, whether it's in NASCAR, whether it's in whatever she was doing. She was doing some off-road stuff too, like her dad. But she said that really wasn't her kind of cup of tea. So I think it's good. It just with every passing year, you get kind of more and more excited about lights. I mean, 2025, you're going to have hopefully Chadwick there. Hopefully you have Miles Rowe. He's already locked in for next year, Miles Rowe. You're going to have Ganassi competing in the series, and now you're adding Hailie Deegan. I think it's another really step forward for the legitimacy of lights. And really
don't forget, most of the races on FS1,
Correct.
maybe a couple on FS2, but you're getting an actual TV package.
Yeah.
That's not stream only. So you're getting measurable viewership for sponsors, for drivers. Like this is a big step forward for that series.
Huge.
And I think this is big, and she will also compete in the final race of the Formula Regional Americas at COTA later this month. So she's going to get some single-seater seat time even before the calendar year flips. She's just 23. She's with HMD. It's one of the top teams, obviously, in the series. So this is a really fascinating move, and I think it's a highlight and will generate interest. I mean, just like Jamie Chadwick has generated interest, Miles Rowe, we talked about them for a couple years now. Next year, they should be title contenders.
You would hope.
And then with her stepping in, she's not going to be a title contender, but it will be fascinating to watch her progress as the season goes on.
Someone else that has a built-in fan base already, it may not be mega, but people that are following Hailie Deegan are going to then gravitate towards being able to watch her. And you don't have to watch her on Peacock. You can watch her on FS1, right, over the air. So it's huge for sure. And that race she's in at COTA, is it part of the F1 weekend this weekend?
That's a good question. I did not think about that.
So potentially a big deal, racing as one of the support series for the F1 race coming.
It is October 31st through November 3rd.
Okay, so it's different. So
end of the month.
It's a big weekend in Austin. You have the F1 Grand Prix, and then you have Georgia, Texas this weekend.
Number 1 versus number 5 in college football action.
I have a buddy that actually is in Austin this week, visiting his brother. He looked into tickets for that Georgia Texas game. Cheapest upper level seats are now $600.
Wow!
So I'm going to ask him, what are the cheapest F1 seats you can find? See if it's higher or lower.
That's a good question. Elsewhere in Indy Lights, Nolan Allar is re-signed with HMD to return in the number 11 for 2025.
He's expected to be a championship contender.
Bryce Aaron will move from Andretti to HMD for a second season. Another name to keep an eye on as well for 2025. James Rowe will be back with Andretti for next year. And then Tommy Smith joins HMD Motorsports for 2025. Australian comes over from Formula 3. Spent the last 2 seasons, 20th overall this year. That info courtesy of Feeder Series America. So a lot of news and announcements in that series, and we have 21 cars for the test coming up this weekend at IMS. Again, on the road course. Could we see 20-plus cars competing? I mean, one would think, because the test does not include any entries from Ganassi. So,
when's the test?
Friday.
Weeks? Oh, Friday.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have to have our buddy Rob Howden on in a couple weeks
to recap.
To kind of recap and talk about the potential for what we could see in 2025. And then we always have him on right before the season starts. But maybe it'd be good to have on, talk about how many cars HMD is going to have, what's the plan for Ganassi, and all that. So look forward to that in a couple weeks.
Yeah, so that's something to keep in mind. And again, HMD, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 drivers completing the test.
So it doesn't sound like they're going to downsize very much.
4 with Andretti. I remember they have Andretti and then that Cape partnership, which Escoto will be the lone driver. There are 2 Cape Andretti drivers last season. Juncos will have 2. Able Motorsports will have 4. They've expanded. Miller Vinatieri will have 1 driver. It's what? Jack? Not Jack Miller. What's his name? Jack Miller is the father.
Right. I can't remember his name. Is it? It's not Jack Miller?
I don't think so.
So several people are yelling at us.
Yeah. Jack William Miller. It is Jack.
Yeah,
okay.
See?
So we were right.
Yeah.
We were right. Don't doubt yourself. But that's a look at all the Indy Lights related announcements over the last week or so. So quite a bit of news. Other notes, several notes from Adam Stern. First off, Greg Penske, key in setting up the new Grand Prix of Arlington, connections with the Legends Way, which is co-owned by the Cowboys. Obviously, he's the heir apparent for IndyCar to take over from Roger Penske. Also, we talked about Mark Miles, and he plans to continue in his role. And then this from Adam Stern as well. NASCAR said to be intrigued by a street course that would have San Diego Bay as a backdrop. So,
want to be Long Beach.
Yes, that's all that is, in my opinion.
I mean, seriously, I think we know that NASCAR was in pursuit of some sort of ownership at the Long Beach Grand Prix, wanted to turn that into a NASCAR event. That was blocked, and their next best option is try to create something in San Diego.
And good luck.
Yeah, have fun with that.
Good luck, indeed.
I mean, they pulled off Chicago. I'm not saying they can't pull that off. I'm just saying it will always be secondary to Long Beach.
A couple notes on other tracks. First off, Mid-Ohio getting some major upgrades. China Beach, yes, going to be elevated, level with the racetrack. The turn 4 portion of the track going to be cut out, ramp leveled off. Track will be flattened off, repaved. All concrete walls on the back straight getting removed, replaced with K-wall style barriers, new catch fencing, access roads getting repaved, rumored some of the tent camping road areas. A lot of improvements. This is good. I feel like it's overdue for the track. They did do a repave a couple years ago, but that courtesy of Books and Burnouts who found that post with info. Also, Zapata AI, which was an Andretti sponsor. Andretti had a stake in this company. They're officially shutting down. The hat tip to Hickey 93 on that. And a part of me wonders, and people have speculated, does that failure for that company and that partnership, was that part of the reason for Andretti stepping down, is that he essentially lost his shirt on that partnership? And then also, Marshall Pruitt had speculated that his sources indicate the move was made to appease Cadillac and Liberty Media, because obviously there's a tiff with Liberty Media and the Andrettis.
Do you think that as aggressive as Michael Andretti has been and grown this and built a empire, is that through the way he's pissed off the wrong people, some of the wrong people, and this is obviously it's blocking potentially his entry into Formula One? But do you feel like some of this has to do with, and it's nothing to blame Michael Andretti, this happens when you're trying to reach the top, is he's just kind of rubbed some people the wrong way and it's coming back to bite him in certain ways?
On the F1 side, yeah, I think that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
But it's unfortunate, but I do think that's kind of the reality of that situation. And
unfortunately.
Yeah, it is unfortunate, but we'll see him at least for the Indy 500. We'll see.
Hopefully we see
beyond
him
that. Hopefully see him at other tracks.
Put him in the booth.
Well. Hey, that could be interesting.
At least like maybe for like a Long Beach or something for a marquee race. See if Michael's not doing anything. Put him in the booth.
That would be fascinating. From Michael Andretti to AJ Foyt, he had his book signing last week. And interesting note on that for Foyt. So the book on AJ Foyt, again, he had that autograph session. But this is part 1 of the book. So part 2 is supposed to come out in 2026.
Okay.
Which I think is fascinating. That will come out, a tentative release, May 2026. The first part of the book, or the first part 1, covers his life through the year he won his final Indy 500 in 1977. That from Jenna Fryer of the AP. So a fascinating development on the Foyt book.
Had a busy week. He had book signing, and he was at the Speedway for the hybrid test. Looked pretty good, too.
Yes.
I mean, I saw pictures of him at the book signing for 89. Still looking pretty stout. And now that the operation of AJ Foyt Racing moving completely to Indiana, you don't know if he's going to be around more or less, or he stay down at the ranch. I don't know, but it was good to see him, and I thought he looked pretty solid for 89.
And speaking of 4-time winners, first exhibition in the rotating gallery space for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum revamp will focus on the 4-time winners of the Indy 500. And then one other note, congrats to Scott McLaughlin Lucy Violet McLaughlin was born on October 10th. So congrats
Lucy
to
Violet.
Scott and Carly. He said the princess of the Thirsty Threes, which is quite funny.
Very nice.
All right. No tweets of the week.
None?
None.
Nothing.
So
right.
we go to our random split error driver of the week.
So we go deep into the final season of the Champ Car World Series with Antonio Pizzonia.
I think I've heard of him.
Well, he raced in Formula One too, so he's not just some random dude. He actually was well known in F1 circles. He raced from 2003 to 2005 in Formula One and started several races, a multitude of races, in fact, and raced for Jaguar F1 in 2003. Ran for BMW Williams in 2004 for 3 or 4 races, and did the same thing for Williams in 2005, had 4 or 5 finishes. And then he turned his sights on the United States, and with Rocket Sports in 2006, raced 4 different races in the Champ Car World Series in that season. Started off the season. I think the season opener that year was Long Beach, I want to say. Yes.
2006?
Yes, 2006. And had a 10th place finish in 2006. So he raced for Rocket Sports, as I said, returned to the team towards the end of the season for races due to sponsorship issues with the former driver. So he was in and then came back to the team in 2007, late in the season, 2008, when Rocket Sports was part of the IRL.
Wait, Rocket Sports was in the IRL?
Let's see, 2008.
Well, it
was the hybrid. Yeah, they did the Long Beach.
They did the Long Beach race,
yes. Right?
Well, no, that counted.
Did it count?
Yeah, it counted because the IRL, if you will, was at Motegi.
So they were at Motegi, right? So it was So he did the Long Beach portion. So overall did 5 total races between the Champ Car World Series and, I guess, the IRL. Even it was because it was a Champ Car sanctioned race, Long Beach race.
Well, it was an IndyCar sanctioned race, but all the Champ Car teams participated at Long Beach instead of in Motegi.
Okay. The majority of the information on him was his spots in Formula One. He was a test driver with Williams, and then eventually became a full-time driver for them. He filled in at Monza there in the 2004 Italian Grand Prix, and actually finished in the points in 7th. He then raced at the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa. He incurred a fine for taking out second-place runner Juan Pablo Montoya just a few laps from the end. I'm sure that was an interesting post-race discussion between Pizzonia and Juan Pablo Montoya. He also took the drive in the Brazilian Grand Prix. His race was over before the first corner after taking out his own teammate Mark Webber, which is not ideal. And that was pretty much it for him in Formula One. And then again, had a couple spot starts in the Champ Car World Series in its final season, and then in IndyCar. Well, 2007 was the last season of Champ Car?
Yeah, the last full season. Yes.
Correct. So the penultimate. He also did some Super League formula, some GP2 in 2007. Did some Stock Car Brazil is kind of where he's spent the latter decade or so. And still with us at 44 years old. So, mainly a Formula One guy, had some opportunities in the Champ Car World Series, the waning days of Champ Car, just one of a multitude of guys that is a fertile ground for random split error drivers of the week. So, a native of Amazonas, Brazil, Mr. Antonio Pizzonia, this week's random split error driver of the week.
And I was looking at the 2006 Champ Car schedule. Fascinating. So they start Long Beach on April 9th, take a month off, Grand Prix of Houston May 13th. Then they're at Fundadora Park in Monterrey, Mexico, May 21st. June 4th, Milwaukee Mile. June 18th, Portland.
Yep.
June 25th, Cleveland. July 9th, Toronto. July 23rd, Edmonton. July 30th, Streets of San Jose. August 13th, Denver street course, which that could be revisited in 2026. August 27th, Montreal on Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. September 24th, so basically another month off, Road America. Another month off, you have Surfers Paradise on the street circuit, October 22nd. Then several weeks off, and you finish at Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez in Mexico City on November 12th.
And here's what's fascinating about
14 rounds.
Is it was a fledgling series at that. It was going downhill. Yet what does it have that IndyCar fans are clamoring for even today? Cleveland, multiple Canada races.
Yes, they had, let's see, three of them.
So Edmonton, Toronto, Montreal.
Yes.
They're racing in Mexico City, or Mexico at least. And
Mexico City and Monterey.
Correct. So so with that schedule, you have Mexico races, at least one, something that IndyCar doesn't have. Multiple Canada races, which IndyCar currently does not have. Of course, Cleveland, which is one of everybody's favorites to bring up.
Surfers Paradise.
It was, for some, a dream schedule in terms of what we have now. Now, no ovals, of course, but...
Well, no, they had the Milwaukee Mile. One oval.
Okay, one oval. But, it was in terms of the needs that some people say IndyCar schedule have in 2024, in 2005... the Champ Car, which was in 2006, the Bridgestone Presents the Champ Car World Series powered by Ford. That schedule gave you a lot of what people are clamoring for in 2024 with IndyCar.
Now, what it didn't have, initially, there was supposed to be a race in Ansan, South Korea in 2006. That didn't happen. A return to Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Champ Car is returning to Road America instead, basically. And so it shrank back to 14 races.
And that race was going to be November 29th.
Yeah.
Could you imagine the season going to November 29th now?
No, I cannot.
No. Some people will be thrilled. You and I, not so much.
Yeah. To me, I'd love to see early October and finish on a big oval, whether it's Michigan or somewhere warm.
Ontario.
Yeah.
Is that track still there?
Trenton?
Oh, no, not
No.
really. Trenton.
But I think the schedule is fascinating because you have a lot of tracks that fans clamor for, but you look at the schedule itself, several basically month-long gaps. You don't start till April 9th. You do go till November 12th. Just a lot of interesting setups with the schedule.
I once did a deep dive. I think I've told this story before. When I worked in newspapers and I was doing stuff at the Speedway, and I had a fascination with Ontario Speedway because it was built as a clone to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It was shaped exactly the same. And when Indianapolis did some sort of resurfacing or something, they gave Ontario Speedway a row of bricks that they laid on that track. And I talked to Robin Miller and whoever I could to try to track, where did those bricks go? Because the Ontario Speedway is no longer there. Are they still on the land? I just always felt, I even talked to Doug Bowles about it because he confirmed that yes, the Speedway did give Ontario bricks to put in the building of that track. I've always wondered, for some reason it was a fascination of mine for like a month, and still is, but not to the extent it was, is where did those bricks from the original, because it was original bricks from the Brickyard given to Ontario Speedway, and where those went when the Speedway was demolished.
I did not know that. That's fascinating.
I never found out. I don't think anybody knew. I mean, Rob Miller didn't know. Whatever, he didn't know if they were salvaged or just in the rubble, just got caught up in everything else. But it was something I chased for like a month and could never find any information about. Currently
on the site of Ontario Motor Speedway, of course, there's development, like apartments in that area and
a lot of retail
homes
there too.
But also there's a park, Ontario Motor Speedway Park.
So maybe I should just go to the park and just start digging with a backhoe and see what I can find.
Perhaps maybe some of the bricks are there. Who knows? But that is interesting. I did not know that about the bricks with the track that were given there. All right. Well, that does it for us. Hopefully next week we have more driver announcements, some more news in the world of IndyCar. But for Justin Kinney, I am Caleb Hatch. This has been New Track Record Podcast.